Hi guys, welcome at lesson 3 in solving your marriage. This time we are going to talk about sexuality. And before I'm going to start talking about sexuality, I just wanted to say that this teaching is for 18 plus or for children that have approval from their parents to look at this. It's like a little sexual education. What we spoke about in the teaching before is that it's important that after we are born again, that we change the patterns of our lives. We don't need to be conformed to the patterns of this world, but we need to be conformed, or we need to be reformed by the renewal of our minds. That's what Romans 12 says. And Jesus says in his prayer example, in the Lord's Prayer, he says, "Father, let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." So that's important. We want the kingdom of heaven to come on this earth. So now we are going to talk about sexuality. Before we're going to talk about sexuality, I just wanted to mention is that sex is good. Sex is created by God, and sex is not only created by God to multiply, to reproduce, but sex is created to enjoy and to love one another and to, as a confirmation of a marriage, of a husband and a wife together and enjoying the intimacy together. Very important. So let's mention some of these points. It's God's plan. Marriage is God's plan for us. It's for a husband and wife. It's not meant to have with multiple people. It's not meant, even though this world is saying something different, it's just meant for that one person that you're going to love for the rest of your life until death do you part. Very important. It's not only for reproduction, but it's also to enjoy. Very important too. It's not just mentioned as with a lot of things that the church has mentioned in the past. They have created an atmosphere that sexuality is only there for multiplication, for reproducing and producing other children. But God made it something beautiful. He made it so that a husband and wife could enjoy something and to become one flesh. And that's also important. These two things, they are connecting together, a husband and wife, becoming one flesh, 1 Corinthians saying that. And this is so important that when they become one flesh, it unifies, it does something to them. And so sexuality goes much deeper, and it's the most intimate thing that you can do. It's something that comes inside your shame zone. It's very important to understand this correctly. This is also very important to understand that if it doesn't work well, it could actually kill the marriage too. Lastly, it's also fun. It's important that you have fun with it, that you can learn and that you can enjoy it. So it's not just a how do you say that? A black stocking thing, what we say here in Holland. It's living, it's thrilling, it's wonderful, it's good. And as far as I understand from people that besides our marriage, but with other people that we've spoken to, it's something beautiful and it's something they really love to do. So let's go to the next point. Sex has been taken over by Satan. We see the patterns of the world have changed everything radically. As we saw last week with communication, we see that the devil tries to come in communication and kill your marriage. So we see also that the devil tries to come in and steal your sexuality or rob good natural intimacy between husband and wife as God has intended it to be. What we see is that parents don't educate their children anymore on sexuality. We leave it to the schools, or we leave it to the internet, to pornography, to educate our children on how to have sex together. That's so wrong. Parents, you need to rise up and show your kids. Now, you don't need to go into detail and show them everything that you do, but you need to tell them and reveal that to them, speak to them, open up. and don't let them learn from others, but let them learn from you, which is very important. It changes a lot of things. Because if in a Christian society we see that our children are taking over principles from pornography and principles from this world and saying this is the standard, we as parents have lacked in our education towards our children. The third thing, it's a different expectation between man and a woman. We need to tell our children, but we need to understand also in sexuality that Satan wants to rob us from what men expect and what women expect. Also, that comes forth out of pornography, but it's very necessary to understand that expectations are needed to be channeled very well. We need to understand that sexuality is developing over time. What we do now is we create a Hollywood atmosphere. This is how we have sexuality, and it all seems intense, and you get a specific intensity or orgasm together always, and there is a picture created that I personally don't think is a good picture on sexuality. It's a movie picture. It's the ideal situation. And I think it's very important to teach our children and to know when you start that it's also developing more and more and more. So get your expectations in order. Also, what Satan tries to do is to make sexuality something all about me. I need to. It's all about lust. I need to have more. Selfishness. And that's not what sexuality is about. It's about giving what you have to your spouse. Giving to make your spouse happy. To make your spouse satisfied. To let your spouse enjoy the beauty of sexuality. Satan has robbed it and says, you deserve more. You need more. That's wrong. That's false. And then we also see from the church side legalism about sex. What we see about intimacy is that many of the missionaries in the past went to different countries and they said the only position you can have sex with one another or intimacy with one another is a missionary position. Husband on top, lady is receiving and is just waiting. And that is just a wrong attitude. It's a wrong picture that is created. There is so much more to see. We actually see that in the Bible too. We see that the Bible teaches us that you can enjoy the breasts of your wife. It's very beautiful. In Song of Songs it says, enjoy the wife of your youth and let, I don't know this exact English word, but let her breast entice you. It's amazing to see how God has created that. Beautiful. So the next point is sex is a matter of training. We don't start perfect. We don't know yet what to do. And with any other apprenticeship, we have a mature person teaching you and being with you, showing it practically what you need to do. But when you're in a marriage, there's two persons, a husband and wife, who don't have any experience, and now they are together. And if you tell them that everything is perfect and it's wonderful and it's amazing, it's working well now, then you might create a different expectation with people. And it can be wonderful, can be nice exactly in the beginning, but it can also be hard, it can bleed, it can be hurtful. If you have the right expectations, you can learn how to overcome these things and become stronger in it. So it's very important that your physical situation when you're young and get married is the best physical position you can be in, ever. But your experience is very low. So you have a high physical situation, low experience. And when you get older, you have high experience, low physical. For me, but maybe for others too, low physical activity. So it's important that you start learning. When you have a low experience, you need to start learning and learning. And the only way you can learn is learning by doing. And how do you do that? Very simply by telling each other. If the girl says, "Oh, now you're hurting me," don't sit down, but ask her then, "How can you help me to make it comfortable? How can I make it comfortable to you? Can you help me?" And so you can speak to one another, you can teach each other what is comfortable and what is not comfortable. And you can learn from one another. And the fourth thing is be creative. Very important. Be creative. Share your ideas. Share your fantasies. And talk to one another. Before and after sex. Tell them what you would like to do. And tell them what you didn't like. Make it clear and be honest with one another. Don't be afraid what the other would say, because we're all learning. And that's a beautiful process. Very beautiful process. The next point is that we want to give you some guidelines on how to develop your sexuality or your sexual intimate relationship together. The one thing is, again, as I said in the teaching before, is giving is the base. If you have sexuality to receive, then you do something wrong. Sexuality or intimacy, you give to one another. And it's once you give to the other, and that person loves you so much, is giving it to you, you're going to have the most wonderful time together. Very important to understand. Second is when you have different types of people. As for me, my wife is from a conservative Christian background. I am from a worldly background, very much worldly background. Sexuality was very normal inside our family. And so we were total opposites. So when we started our intimate relationship together, we start on the conservative side. And we learn and we develop as we feel comfortable, bit by bit. Oh, this is what we like and that is what we like. But we start conservative. Don't try to force your ideas immediately on your wife or on your husband. Be patient and give it time. Thirdly, remember the differences between men and women. You know, men are visual beings. They like to see it. And you need to understand that once a man sees the beauty of his wife, he can just, from one moment, he can get aroused and wants to be intimate with her. Even when you just had a fight, he could easily go and want to have sex with his wife. And that's almost impossible for his wife, because women like to, for them, sexuality or intimacy is all about feeling safe. And it's all about feeling. It's all about, as I say, normally it's about riding a wave. Where you're on a wave and it feels good, then you can give yourself. If you just had a fight, you better talk the fight out first and then have intimacy. Otherwise, it will be in her mind the whole time. But other thing that women also like is they like to be taken on a journey. It's not that they immediately get aroused. You need to have some foreplay and create the atmosphere that also she gets this desire to have intimacy with you. Fourth point is don't be distracted. There's so many things you can be distracted about. Once you have intimacy, don't start talking about the appointment that you have tomorrow, or you need to go to the dentist and that kind of stuff. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by ideas that you might have. If you have pictures coming into your mind, don't be distracted with that. Just focus on your wife, focus on your husband, and enjoy. Very important. The fifth point is spend time together. Now, once you have intimacy, it's not that you come from work, you see your wife, and you go to bed with one another. There's much more in that. The intimacy is the fruit of the relationship that you have together. So you need to also spend time more together. Also on other things, important things. And then you can see that this is a fruit of being together. The sixth point is use positive words. Very important. If you are denigrating your husband or your wife. Simple things, you've grown weight again. That could really kill the desire for intimacy. Or things like, you haven't given much attention to me lately. That could just rob you. But the thing what really can encourage you is when you start saying, oh, you're so beautiful. If you look at your wife and you say, wow, you are so beautiful, it does something with her. And if you go to your husband and you touch his muscles and you say, wow, you're so strong. Something like that. It just does something with the other person. Be positive. Speak positive words. It opens up for the other to also be positive about you. And that's very important. The Bible says, be an encouragement for one another. Encourage each other. And the last point is the Hollywood honeymoon. Once you have the first night together, don't think it will be smashing like it is in Hollywood. It is very important that especially a lady has, it's the first time you see each other naked, if it's the way we believe that God has meant it to be. Then it will be the first time you see each other naked. And for a woman, it's like it's the first time she shows her body. And most of the women don't feel very good about themselves and don't think they're beautiful. We think, whoa, God, thank you so much for having such a beautiful woman. And but this woman thinks, oh no, I'm not beautiful enough. She sees all the flaws and the failures. And then once you're there in the first night and she's so tense and so excited, she's like, oh, what's going to happen? And then you just look at your woman and you think, oh, let's jump on her. And no, that's not right. It's at that moment you need to understand that she needs to be brought into that intimacy, that desire for intimacy, where you need to be careful that you don't penetrate her without her being, I can only say the word wet. I think that's important. You need to really be careful with her, be gentle, take good care of her, look at her and take it easy. Don't think that the Hollywood picture is the best picture. Just do it the right way and you will enjoy it together. And if it wasn't working the first night, don't worry about it. You've got many, many nights to enjoy and to learn. And I hope that you had something with this teaching. Our conclusion is very simple. When you are married, enjoy sexuality. Be patient and acceptable and enjoy it. Be wise and learn this job. Learn to do it well. And think about her. Think about him. Give yourself to one another. Make her feel comfortable. And I'm pretty sure that she will also open up her heart for you. Now, there might be many other things that we can discuss. What about pregnancy? What about anti-conception? What about sexuality during menstruation? What about vaginism or something like that? There's many things that we can talk about. And we would like to talk to you about that personally, privately. I'm not going to mention this during this video, but I hope you've learned something from this. Thank you and see you next week.